I'm Mayor Keir Jones, and joining me is Alfa. She's our Economic Development Manager for Signal Hill. And we wanted to share a little bit of information about our Opportunity Study Areas project. It's a multi-year effort to analyze 3 key areas in Signal Hill, to use planning tools to create value, attract investment, and guide future development. This initiative is designed to drive future redevelopment and economic growth in key underutilized areas in our city. Signal Hill is an ideal location. I'm sure many of you agree this is a great place for businesses seeking to invest in a community with strong growth potential. The city offers a central position near key transportation corridors, the Port of Long Beach, the Los Angeles Airport, and it makes it easily accessible to major markets in the greater Los Angeles area. We know how important it is to market our city effectively, especially as we look to attract new investment and development. Signal Hill offers a strategic location, established business ecosystem, market stability, and proactive governance, all key advantages that set us apart and give us a position for thoughtful long-term growth. Okay, so what's the purpose of the OSA, or the Opportunity Study Area? The purpose is to support the city's economic growth, incentivize development through new overlay zoning, and help meet future demand for additional retail, housing, and job-generating uses. There's lots of information on the slide. Anything else I should go over there on that?
Just to go back one slide. Yeah, part of the supporting the city's economic growth through this study is to help attract businesses, help create jobs in the city, also diversify the city's tax base. So now with the absence of redevelopment, we're looking at other ways to expand the city's diversification and sales tax base.
So we have an awesome auto zone. We need to make sure besides our auto center, we have other forms of revenue for the city to continue to provide the services and really make sure we have a strong, dynamic business community with lots of jobs for our residents. All right, so where are we talking about with our OSA? So this next slide shows what the boundaries are. So we're talking about Atlantic Avenue to the west, Willow Avenue to the south, and Temple Avenue to the east. This combined area includes 210 acres. It makes up about 15% of the city's total land area. The parcels in blue on the slide are either vacant or underutilized parcels. All right, so what are our keys to success? So we're working closely with our property owners and the development community. We're building trust. We're encouraging collaboration to find best uses for these parcels. We're going to be holding study sessions that encourage engaging with our residents, the business community, and making sure that these spaces become meaningful for the residents, the community, and where we're going to go in the future. So they're going to be open to the community, stakeholders, and decision makers. So the goal is to strike the right balance by providing flexibility for the future, making sure we have what's needed for development, and we're probably going to use overlay zones to accomplish this. So we're taking the time to explore the full range of possibilities to ensure we get Signal Hill's future right. Okay, so the next part is the most exciting. So the next 3 slides demonstrate some of the key areas that are emerging from our opportunity study and are emerging from what the economics of the area are. So a lot of it includes adaptive reuse of industrial buildings, expanded housing opportunities, hotel development, strategic retail investment, and so you can see on this slide some of the really cool projects in the area. So one of them is in San Juan Capistrano. You can see how they use the space and they really create a sense of place in these places. And a lot of us are familiar with the Hangar project in Long Beach. We also have SoCo Collection, which is another really cool thing down in Orange County, which is a home project, right? You can go there for anything related to remodeling your house. So a lot of these concepts include combining retail, office, light industrial, as well as residential. So when we look at the residential ideas, we're looking at more density and multifamily. So with the residential, we want to make sure that we are really meeting the housing needs of the area. and really providing options to attract young professionals. We have Space Beach launching right here in our area. We have Vast, Relativity, all big operators who are hiring lots of young skilled professionals. And we want to make sure we have housing here to meet that need, so they come locate in Signal Hill. We have families with dual incomes, and we really want to help provide the pride of home ownership in the area, as well as giving them great spots to spend their money, right? So we want to really expand on what Signal Hill has to offer. And of course, we want to give people a place to stay when they're staying in the region for either business or they're here to enjoy all the hospitality that Southern California offers. So we're looking at hotel sites. So Spring and Atlantic, it's city-owned property, and right now we're looking at 2 potential hotels at that site. It's very close to the airport, very close to the hospital, of course Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm aren't far, as well as everything the Port of Long Beach has to offer. So we're releasing an RFP on that. And so Alfa is now going to share kind of where we're headed, next steps.
Thank you, Mayor Jones, appreciate it. So again, everyone, as we've laid out the framework for what the OSA project is, kind of outlined the 3 opportunity study areas that are essentially north of Willow Avenue. We want to talk about the outreach and next steps as part of that project. And as Mayor Jones mentioned, this is a multi-year project. We want to do this, we want to do it right, since it's laying the framework for the future. So we want to make sure that community and stakeholder input is something that we want to do in this first phase as we approach the next phase that is really looking at the economic study that was performed recently by our consultant Placework. And I want to highlight some of the economic analysis. So before I get into the outreach, I just want to point out the city hired Placeworks, who is a planning firm, and they're helping us go through this project because it is a very large undertaking, as you can imagine, but the goal is the same. We want to create value. We want to really look at the city property that's underutilized and vacant, as Mayor Jones mentioned. And part of the economic analysis started with a feasibility study that's available online. So on your tables, you have a QR code that takes you to the dedicated page for this project. So we're here today, but by no means does that mean that you're not able to be connected and updated on the project. So every step of the way, we're going to be updating our dedicated page, so the QR takes you straight to that. And we'll be noticing future meetings and opportunities to talk more about this project. But initially, we conducted an economic analysis, and we found a few key ideas that will guide this project and future development. Okay. So I want to emphasize really quickly that the idea behind an overlay zone will not change the underlying use that's currently there. So the underlying use for the properties will remain the same. The idea is to create opportunities for options, to create opportunities on top of the current land use. So again, the opportunities for the three areas that are highlighted for the city will not, the goal is not to change the current land use for those properties. One of the market study that was completed by Placework really highlighted the opportunity for hotels in Signal Hill. And not just one, but at least 2 hotels. So we are really focusing what that looks like, where we could put the hotels, and also reaching out to developers to talk about the city. And this is where some of our marketing, including the backdrops and the step and repeats that you see here, really we took this show on the road. So one of the first steps was to go to the International Shopping Center Convention in Las Vegas, really talk about the city, who we are, where we are. It was really interesting to see how there were people that saw us at the convention. They really were familiar with Long Beach, but weren't aware that Signal Hill was incorporated, that we're our own city, just celebrated 100 years, as you know, last year. And so that was really rewarding to be able to say, hey, we're here, we have development opportunity, not just in city-owned and vacant properties that you saw in the previous slide, but in the area and the cities that we are identifying opportunities for just north of Willow. So we hosted a booth, we talked a little bit about the project, we talked a little bit about the brochures that you have on your table that highlight one of the city-owned property on Spring and Atlantic. It's a large 13-acre property. It'll take some teamwork to get that developed, as you know, based on our site criteria, but what we're looking for is the value that the property has for the city in the long run, for option for hotels, residential, and also commercial development. So please be on the lookout for additional information on this project. And next slide. So we're happy to take questions. That concludes our presentation. Thank you very much. And again, your table has QR codes that take you directly to the dedicated website for this project. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for Sherry's questions. Sherry's the best, so I like putting her on the spot. Go for it.
What's the ideal time frame here?
The ideal time frame, well, the OSA study is coming back to the City Council this year. And a lot of it you'll continue to see ongoing outreach, right? So that we really set up what the future of Signal Hill looks like with the community's involvement, the business community's involvement. The group that PlaceWorks is helping us find, what's going on in the region. Where are the needs of the region when it comes to residential space, commercial space, industrial space? What does it take to set up a really successful restaurant zone in Signal Hill? What are the type of places? What makes a place feel like a place people want to live? What does the interaction look like? So, the slide that showed the place in San Juan Capistrano, or if you look at the SoCo collection down in Orange County, or even Steelworks, right, that we have here locally, or even the hangar. There's really key design elements and the mix of businesses that make it a place you want to go hang out, right? That really help create this sense of community. And so a lot of that's going to come through our outreach and studying what our residents want to see. And then, of course, making sure that whoever wants to set up business there is successful. And it's going to be a place people want to come from the region to shop, to go to eat. We want people to want to come stay in our hotels, to come visit Signal Hill. And so that's the phase we're in now. So from time-wise, we see these hotel projects, fingers crossed, like I'd love to see them under construction and available for the Olympics. Is it feasible? It's cutting it a little close, but in Signal Hill, we have the team ready to move. So if we find the right developer that's ready to move, we're going to work with them to remove obstacles, because in the case of Spring and Atlantic, the city owns the property. And so we have things in our toolbox to help facilitate a lot of this. And then we have some great developers in Signal Hill already that are great partners in moving forward when we find the right developer for some of the projects that the OSA develops.
Can you touch on a little bit of the potential environmental impacts of the oil history, pipelines? Is there any cleanup involved for some of these building projects? Is that going to be a delay, or is that something you guys have already sorted?
So any construction in the whole region has some unexpected elements from the past. And so, when we're looking at the oil infrastructure, code has increased significantly over time. So you could have a site that was 100% to code when it was an original operation, and we're gonna have to go back and re-abandon wells up to new code. And so particularly for the vacant sites, they usually require a lot more remediation. They're vacant because there's some issue. In Signal Hill, we have an earthquake fault that runs through the city. So a lot of the vacant sites actually have more issues than just oil. We have fault lines and other earth issues that we have to deal with earth movement. Where the opportunities study really helps create other opportunities besides the vacant site with this overlay zoning. So we have sites that are already gone through remediation that might be an underutilized parcel where we can put more density, and the owner of that site might, instead of wanting warehouse space, be willing to build a multi-unit residential project that pencils out better. And so some of those sites potentially could have very little remediation from an environmental standpoint. But of course, we really want to make sure that this is really the opportunity on some of these other sites to do the right environmental cleanup that helps the adjacent parcels too. So, so we really want to make sure that those parcels are economically viable from a remediation standpoint, so that we do see new projects built and the sites get cleaned up. So we're partnering as the city to make sure that we provide the developers with the resources they need, whether it's inspections or state resources, or other things when it happens, so that they don't have surprises when they get on the parcels. And a lot of that is just about doing due diligence so that they understand what they're getting into and what resources are available to clean up the site.
Yeah. And we also have a very experienced community development team. So once we get into that stage with a developer, they will work with our team to work around some of the site conditions. As you can see conceptually, what we were thinking about Spring and Atlantic, it takes in consideration the fault line. So there's a design concept that already takes that into consideration, and other buffers around other site conditions as well.
And the Signal Hill is pretty unique in that we were established based on the oil production, and we're established in an urban area. And so we have our own oil and gas code and our own standards that have been involved with all of our construction, basically since the city started. And so, our safety standards through our code really has allowed us to have our residential development very adjacent to oil production. And, we have high levels of safety monitoring, and we continue to raise the bar when it comes to, we have our own water department in Signal Hill. We monitor our water safety closely, and we want to continue to make sure that we're providing a safe environment for our residents. And so, our building code is stringent in Signal Hill because we want to make sure that if you live in Signal Hill, you're safe from, number one, our goal as public officials is to keep you safe, is number one, right? And so, we want to make sure your air is clean. We want to make sure that you feel safe from violence. We want to make sure that the environment is 100% safe. We want to keep you safe on the road, right? We want to keep you safe from trash, right? So we work on all this infrastructure to make sure that you have a safe place to live and call home. And, that's been our objective from day one in Signal Hill. And we luckily have some great building codes to make sure that these sites do get cleaned up, and they'll become places that you can call home and our families can live. So great question, and hopefully I answered it.
Yeah, that's right.
A couple years ago, I believe it was when Mother's Market opened, there was supposed to be an area over over by Mother's Market with restaurants and a park and spaces.
Yeah, so let's talk about Heritage Square. Is what we've called the project. We built Heritage Point Park across from the site, the original vision for the area there at the corner of Skyline and Cherry. If you're not familiar, it's across from the Cherry Home Depot and right adjacent to the Mother's Market, is to create one of these places, right? These city gathering areas. And so, the idea would be to have restaurant spaces there, some residential element, but it's a place maybe you could walk to from the top of the hill or from the trail that we've built through Heritage Point Park up to that zone. And my vision for that space is a view restaurant. And every version of that site has had a view restaurant on it. So just imagine, kind of not on the corner, but just adjacent. You're on the second level. There's a gorgeous terrace, and you're going to see all the way out to Catalina. You're going to see downtown Long Beach. You're going to see the International Bridge. It's going to be a phenomenal gathering place. And then on the other side of that, imagine the hangar, some concept like Steelworks, where you have little pop-up restaurants, a big open space for a venue space potentially. Maybe there's a farmer's market. And then the last piece is a residential element. The project got bogged down a little bit with the residential element in the past, and so that's still up for grabs, but we're not going to settle for some project that is not ideal on that space. And so hopefully, Alfa and I were talking about this, is we get the View Restaurant first, right? There's a huge demand for the View Restaurant. I personally talk to operators that want a View Restaurant that they would love to occupy. And so we hope to get that moving and then fill in the other spaces as the demand calls for it, and we can put the right thing on that space, because we don't want to just fill it with something, because that's a very special spot, right? And that'll most likely be where we think of the center of town being. Hopefully in the OSA we also create some other spaces potentially with more density that are also like I like to call it Center Street, which is like 21st Street, right, today. And potentially there could be another vibe of a little bit more of an urban downtown, but the Heritage Square spot will be our small town, little, where we go to eat, where we go get coffee, you know, maybe where we go pick up our dry cleaning, where maybe we do Pilates there. But of course, the View Restaurant is where we want to have the chamber events, right? So, yeah.
And if I may, Mayor, if you're not familiar with the Heritage Square project, that is an entitled project, and it's on the city's website, so I'd be happy to share the link with the chamber to share with their members.
Yeah.
But you could see some of the renderings that our mayor's, you know.
And we have another site at Walnut and Willow that isn't quite as far along, but is more similar to the original Heritage Point or Heritage Square project, with restaurant spaces in the front of it with higher density behind it. And that project is probably 2 or 3 years out from coming, but and I think it has been approved as part of our housing element.
Yes.
And
That's
so,
right.
you know, it's in the conceptual stages, but it is part of our housing element to hit our numbers for new housing. And it's really another great example of kind of a mixed-use project with restaurant spaces and places to gather with larger density residential behind it. So look for that. And we're looking for things, so when you look at the OSA and this opportunity study area, it's kind of the part of town in the middle that will end up connecting us, right? And so, you know, also we really have a long-term plan to connect North Signal Hill with as far down as we go on PCH. And in that connectivity, it's gonna be multimodal, right? We're really still wanna be focused on green recreation space. And so you'll have a connection all the way from our north neighborhood, which I have some terms that I'm trying to sell. So I like to call the north neighborhood North Park instead of Reservoir Park neighborhood. And then it'll come through our business corner at Atlantic and California, and this trail system will connect through Willow Springs Park, which is a great resource, but part of Long Beach. And it'll come over to 21st Street, which will be our new Center Street, and you'll be able to come down. You might come down Orange, you might come down Walnut, and there'll be connectivity, which this connectivity is already in the works to go up Burnett and through Skyline with multimodal, with a bike lane and a trail system.
Sweet.
And you'll come all the way through, and you can decide how you want to come down, if you want to come down Temple, or if you want to come down Winipro for walking Signal Hill. And it's going to be amazing, right, when it's done. And this overlay zone helps us create the vision for it so that we can sell it to developers. And that really has been the key. When they see the city this engaged with the future and being supportive of developers, they get excited. And we really have shown excitement through our Civic Center master plan. Hopefully you all have seen the new amphitheaters coming up. And that level of involvement and investment in the community is getting the development community excited, and they're reaching out to look for opportunities in Signal Hill. And we have a new residential project that is going on a site that honestly is one of the most challenging sites when it comes to remediation. This is the site of a former refinery, and we're gonna put $1 million houses on this site. So it is gonna be cleaned up. It's gonna become a star in our Civic Center neighborhood. And that's because the city is committed to making sure we have the right space for our residents and the future, and making sure this is a place you want to live, work, and play. And it's going to be a dynamic, and you all are here at the ground of it, helping create it. And so, I'm really passionate about it because this is what I've talked about running for city council for from the beginning. And it's taken this time to build up the team. And we have the best team serving our residents in Signal Hill, our business community, and these potential developments. And so Alfa is on it. If you can't tell, she is finding folks and getting them excited about it. Our city manager comes from a planning background. So if you haven't talked to Carlo, he is on it. We have the right person on city council as a partner in Charlie. Charlie is so excited about this. And Charlie is running for city council and on council now because he's so excited about the future and the opportunities we have in the city. And so hopefully we get it going. And so to answer your question on the timing is we want to get this set up so it is just cut and go, right? as soon as we find a developer, we have a place for them to do what they want to do that fits into the plan that the city has for the future. So we're getting it done, we're laying the groundwork, and it's really all about the money at this point, right? So you have to get the economics there so that financing is available and these projects are viable. And so we want to have the planning done so that when that happens, we're ready to roll.
Pam had a question.
Pam?
I just,
Don't forget.
there was a question about what sounded like environment and oil, so if I'm wrong, I just wanna say, a year ago, a study put us 30% healthier than other communities. So somebody has come and cleaned this up, and we're a 30% healthier community than our neighbors. So we're moving in a better direction, and I don't see us going back on that. I think we're gonna just move forward. The other thing, when you say restaurants with views, I say rooftop restaurants with views.
Well, and as we're talking about the hotel developments, like just think about a rooftop pool plate. You know, rooftop pools at hotels and restaurants on the rooftops of these hotels. We're gonna have views from Signal Hill that rival Hollywood Hills, right? You see all of LA, you see all of the hills, our views are spectacular on both sides of the hill. So imagine anything that's at 5 or 6 stories facing north is gonna have a spectacular view. And so in our building code and our development code, we're really gonna look at making sure we optimize patio space, so outdoor space, and view potential, and sustainability, right? We want these projects to be green, we want them to be sustainable, we want them to be friendly to our environment, and the goal is then to do less damage, right, going forward through the development and to fix the past damage, so. Yeah.
Other thing, I haven't heard us go into it, and it's all new, it's the autonomous vehicles. We're such a small city, it's almost like one of those companies would take 2.2 square miles and maybe map a trolley system for jumping on and off, jumping off. We don't have to go on the freeway, but we can do our stuff within our own city, and I think maybe that's a grant sitting out there for one of those companies to prove themselves.
Oh,
Like
that's
that,
cool.
like the
That's
trolley idea.
we're so centrally located, and you think about where the blue line, which is called the A line now, where that all is. We have Long Beach Airport, right? We have Cal State Long Beach. We have the hospital. We have the port. We are between LAX and Orange County Airport, and there is an opportunity for something like Pam just talked about, where Signal Hill is the connector, right? And even between the A line and Long Beach Airport, or between the A line and the convention center, and to make our place that we establish really easy to get to. And ultimately, though, it's also for the folks that live here, right? And so we want to give folks that live here something fun to go do here and to interact with, in a place, just to go have coffee and hang out and sit, besides sitting at your own house. So.
First, I want to thank you for expanding, or working on expanding the outdoor amphitheater. I think there'll be, as we talked before, there'll be a lot more productions or entertainment. My question is, there's still a lot of nonprofits and entertainment companies that need an inside location. Could we require both hotels, or at least one of the hotels, to have an amphitheater, an indoor amphitheater? Just because I know there's a report in the California state that says theater that brings in, or any artist brings in, a theater brings in $500,000, 5 times as much money comes into that city. So by having an active regular theater in an indoor thing, potentially, depending how much they meant, but let's say $500,000, that's $2.5 million that's coming into the coffers of the different places. So is that a thought? Maybe you could acquire the hotel?
So your question is really wrapped into the whole PlaceWorks study, right? And so what PlaceWorks is doing is looking for those types of opportunities that he just described, right? So what are the things that attract people to a community? What is going to make Signal Hill a gathering place regionally, right? And so one of the things they identified and we pointed out was the SoCo collection down in Orange County. It's a regional destination for home products, right? There's big furniture stores there. You know, the IKEA is not too far from there. There's all kinds of home boutique stores there. They have a little food thing there. It's a regional draw. You know, so you look at things like theater space, you look at things like sports stadiums, you look at things like the hotels, right? So where they have really shown where there's an opportunity for developers that are interested in building, because that's the other piece. Whatever projects we put out there, we have to find people to build them, and that will be economically viable, has been showing us hotels. And so he suggested perhaps you know, having a space that could be a theater. And you know, for me, in my list, you know, we need bigger event spaces overall. And you know, so when I'm thinking about hotel spaces, you know, even some bigger ballroom spaces would be very helpful for us in Signal Hill. And so for sure that's on our radar. And then, you know, we really need these spaces to be multifunctional. And so, you know, one use doesn't necessarily lend itself to the other use, but when you're looking at, let's say we decide we wanted to be a draw for major company events, you know, maybe what he's suggesting with the theater space could be a great space if you were going to have a company event too. And so then you've sold it to the hotel now because they have a unique proposition to give to their people that want to come use the hotel for maybe an event presentation or something like that, where you have more of a theater setup ability and then have the ballroom capacity. And even the theater setup, you know, could be good for wedding events, right? And then you go off to the ballroom for the reception. So, you know, it's really where we want to look for special uses that make us more attractive than going, you know, somewhere else. And so, yeah, that's good. That's a good one to keep on the radar.
Yeah,
and,
well,
and you know, I was looking at sports stadiums. I'm like, could we have a casino? You know, like what's really going to be our draw? But we also have to make sure it's feasible. And so, like for instance, like our biggest parcel is this Spring and Atlantic site, right? That's a big space. You could almost do anything with it, right? In your head, you're like, this is a lot of space. We could put a baseball stadium there, right? In theory, but we can't, right? Because this is a fault line.
The parking lot.
So we have to work within our parameters too, right? So that's another whole parameter. And then we talked about our oil history. And so even when we're doing this, and there's even stricter regulations about building over abandoned wells, right? And so in this spacing, there's abandoned wells. And so this is one, and this is one. And then there's wells that are being operated currently and will continue to be operated. And so, you know, we have a lot of parameters where we have to find best use and then also make sure it's marketable to developers. So it's a puzzle. And that's why we're trying to get rid of all the obstacles and have the plan in place so that when we're ready, it's just like, okay, let's go. You got the money, you have the idea, we have the space, and let's move.
And you can always feel free to send us an email through our website. You can always send me an email directly or call me if you have any ideas or just general feedback on today's presentations or the future of our opportunity study areas.
Question?
The home you're talking about building on the refinery site, is that one on Walnut just below 21st Street?
No, it's not Walnut. It's
Walnut and Hill, like Walnut between Hill and 21st.
Yeah.
oh, is it 21st?
On the end.
The big
Yeah.
fire was a long time ago.
Was the Hancock fire there?
No,
No, that was.
it's the old Kenmore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's adjacent to Jenny Rivera Park there.
Across the street from,
The health center thing,
That's up the street, yes.
Yeah.
You're in the vicinity. It's right behind Zinnia.
yes.
Okay, does that, yeah. Zinnia, so, you're all looking pretty attentive, but I don't want to keep you. So the other piece, you know, we're doing very, very well on our workforce housing and making sure we have affordable housing in Signal Hill. And so, so the other piece that we want to continue to do though, and Greg asked a great question, is we want to have for purchase, right? we want to make sure that we have a way for you to own your own home, right? And the pride of ownership really does create a community, right? We have people that are invested now in the success of Signal Hill. And so this opportunity study area really does give us an opportunity to build some housing for first-time buyers, right, in the area, right? So these will probably mainly be condo spaces, but we also want to make sure that so the reason we have all these townhouse projects going in versus higher density condo spaces in the region is that the litigation in the condo complex has been out of control. But they can build the townhouses with less litigation. And so, that's the other piece. We have to be really actively engaged with Sacramento and some of the things that they do that make it super hard for developers to build things. And, we really want to make sure that, people stay in Signal Hill, they own a piece of Signal Hill, they have a place to build equity, and that's only achieved through home ownership. And so that's a huge driver of some of these projects, is to make sure that we have things for first-time buyers to buy. And then the other piece, we are in the top 5 for retirement destinations for retirees in California. Did you know that?
No.
Okay, so Signal Hill, I think we might be number 5 or 4. And we were written up in the LA Times. So I'm not making this up.
Oh, I saw that, and I just- I did actually see that.
It's there, right?
This is
And
kind of
so, Signal Hill in general, with our new development, people move here from wherever they lived before, right? So we also want to create a community where retirees want to sell their place and move to Signal Hill. So that's our other buyer, right? So those properties need to be accessible. We not a lot of stairs, good elevators. And the other piece that we're doing really well in Signal Hill is our health and wellness. Our seniors have a phenomenal plan through our Parks, Recreation, and Library Services Department. Our seniors are so active and engaged. We have a Zumba class that is like, it'll make you feel 10 years younger, and you need to get in there and see them moving. But so that's the kind of thing we're doing in Signal Hill, and those are the folks we want to attract, is the folks that want to be actively engaged, own a piece of the hill, and also get out there on our trail system and go spend some money at your businesses and hopefully attract some restaurants and create this place that we all want to, retire at, or start our family at, or buy our first place at, and just really, you all are sold. This is really an amazing city, and we're completely unique. There is no place else like Signal Hill, and hopefully what you're seeing is that we're planning to attract more people that really appreciate it, will love it, and continue to grow with it, and our city staff is here to hopefully make it happen. So thank you for your time. We're always available to answer questions. Make sure the QR code, this will continue to evolve. This video and all this information will go there. We are really big advocates of the Chamber. The Chamber's been a huge partner, but we're also here to continually to support your success as a Chamber and business owners. And that's your path. So if you ever need help, call Alfa. She'll help link you to resources, and we'll look for ways to continue to celebrate our business community. So thank you all.